Today we are going to do one Greek thinker. His name is Thucydides. His theory is so completely different from the other thinkers of Socrates, Plato and Aristotle. Thucydides' theory is very provocative. And it is very unusual. So in the light of Thucydides, all these three thinkers look like be good and be good. And all these thinkers look naive. They look naive in the light of what Thucydides said. But anyway, to make things clear, it is not that Thucydides took certain theoretical position and gave lectures on his theory. He wrote a book titled Pelepennesian War. And this war took place between 431 BC. Started in 431 BC and it lasted for 27 years. So Thucydides wrote about this. The title of the book was Pelepennesian War. He described the war, the events, the process, and the dialogues between the actors. But it was such an enriching material that what the political scientists are interested in now, or the historians interested in now, is not the war itself, but the way it was written about by Thucydides. Military planners, political scientists, defense analysts, they read this book and analyze various processes. And it is a kind of a model for them to work out the process, the consequences, and how it could have been, what was right, what was wrong. So a tool for discussion. So it was such a great book he wrote. He didn't formally offer a theory, but others drew certain lessons from this book. So he was there around this time. So Socrates was tried after this war. Plato was watching the Socratic trial. And Thucydides wrote this war while living in it. So the war was between Athens and Sparta. So finally, Athens was crushed. It was a great city, but at the end of the war, it was thoroughly defeated because of many mistakes it made. Without going into the detailed specifics of the war, let us get into the provocative position Thucydides took on justice. Or accurately, not that Thucydides took, but some of his actors took. More specifically, Athenians took on what is justice and what is power. This particular discussion on justice and power is taken from what is called Melian dialogue. This took place between and Melians. Melians is a small island and neutral. Powerless. Athenians wanted Melians to surrender or face destruction. Wanted Melians that you can't remain neutral, you should join us, you should be on our side, and you should surrender. And if you are not surrendering, face destruction. So that is one proposal by the powerful put forward before the powerless. What is interesting about this dialogue Thucydides wrote was that Athenians very clearly explain their motive and justify it. See, the dialogue between them was naked, brutal, colorless. I mean, absolutely frank. Maybe comparison will help. When America was invading Iraq, it didn't say that, see, we are powerful and we have the right to invade you. When America is threatening Iran, it is not saying, you should develop nuclear weapons because when we want to attack you, you should be in a position to be attacked. America is telling Iran that it is violating one treaty, NPT, as if it was a sacred treaty. And it told Iraq that it was producing weapons of mass destruction. And so it should be attacked. Or somehow responsible for terrorism, though it was not. So, when US was threatening other countries, US never said that we are powerful, so we have right to attack you. But it explains itself in terms of right and wrong, that you have done this harm to us, you are going to do harm to us, are going to harm the world. So, US states justice backs up with power, states justice, and backs it up with power. When US is stating justice, it may distort information. It may create excuses. But it says that on this principle of justice, we want you to change. And because you are not changing, we will attack you. So normally the powerful people make these proposals that we are just and we are implementing the justice, we are undoing the injustice, and we can do it because we have the power. So justice is stated in certain principles, and implementation of justice is done through power. That is the normal course of action. But in Melian dialogue, Athenians state that they don't have any higher principle of justice. So they say it very clearly, we are not attacking you because you have harmed us, you are going to harm us, or we helped in Persian War and so we deserve empire. Athenians say we are not going to give all those reasons. They say we are powerful, you are not, surrender. Very simple. So Athenians are proposing a theory. Power itself has justice. Not that justice is drawn from higher principles and power is drawn from some other process. No. Power itself has justice. We have the power, surrender, otherwise face destruction. So, respecting power is justice. To stand up to one's equals. This is the justice. To stand up to one's equals. To behave with deference towards one's superiors. To treat one's inferiors with moderation. Stand up to one's equals. To behave with difference with one's superiors. To treat one's inferiors with moderation. And superior, inferior, equal are in terms of power. This is in terms of power. So, your behavior should depend on power. standard. One is equal, different, superior, inferior. This is what justice is. So definitely it is an unusual theory. So in this dialogue, they make all kinds of proposals that we are neutral, we are not harming you. That is rejected. That if you harm people like us, other islanders also may feel more threatened. Athenians say they have their own ways of calculating such a thing. And Melians say, as part of many of the arguments they put forward, that the Spartans would help because they are kinsmen. Athenians laugh at that argument. And Melians say that fortune may favor us. Athenians again say it is a matter of wishful thinking. So that's how different arguments are advanced. But one argument I found particularly striking in the context of morality is the argument put forward by Melians that we are good, and because we are good and you are bad, that in a war, gods may help us. Melians say that gods will be on our side because we may be weak and may be strong, but the justice is on our side because you are coming to us. You are not giving any reason, not any excuse. You are simply saying that you are powerless and so surrender. Gods won't like this. You know what Athenians said? No. They said, what we are saying about power and power as justice is law of nature. What we are telling you is the law of nature, which gods gave, gods follow. We didn't make the law. We didn't make this law. We found it. It was there. So the importance of power and the power as justice was not the law that we made. Gods made it. It was a law of nature. So, because we are only following what gods gave us, there is no reason in the war that gods should favor you. Gods are not, there is nothing to say that gods are not on our side. That is to say very clearly that there are no higher principles other than power. If there are higher principles other than power, You can accuse us on the ground that we are violating them. But there is nothing higher than power. God themselves gave this law of nature. And we are following it. Our opinion of the gods and our knowledge of men lead us to conclude that it is a general and necessary law of nature to rule whatever one can. To rule whatever one can. This is the law. This is not a law we made, nor were the first to act on it. We found it was there already in existence. To rule whatever one can. And so, we are asking you to surrender. So, this is very blatant, naked, brazen. So we know power shapes justice, power influences the notion of justice, but power itself as justice is put forward by Athenians, which sounds unusual even today. So that's why Thucydides is regarded as one of the founders of a school called Realism. In international relations. Realism. Realism gives importance to power. And realism takes power as a relative phenomenon. That is, if one has power, the other person doesn't have. If one country has power, the other country doesn't have. So Thucydides says that the main reason for Peloponnesian War was the rise of Athens. Athens was becoming more powerful, and that made Spartans insecure. Not that they did something to Spartans, but Athenians were becoming powerful. And once power means others' powerlessness. Power is relative. So Spartans felt insecure. That was the main reason for Peloponnesian War. So some country becoming powerful, he can use it in any context, in a diverse context. So that is translated into powerlessness of the other. So that's it. Importance to power. To rule whatever one can, and power as justice. So thinking everything in terms of power. Is what realism is. So, it is far different from the theory which said there was justice, and justice comes from following certain higher principles, and those higher principles are in tune with human nature, if human nature is properly understood. That is knowledge, happiness, morality going together. That was Socrates, Plato and Aristotle's question. But this is quite different. It is, power is what matters. And there is no talk of happiness. There is no talk of self-knowledge. Nothing higher than power. But remember, we don't know what actually Thucydides would say on this. We are only going through the dialogues he wrote. Probably Thucydides' personal opinion was that this might not be right. Because after all, he was describing a dialogue in which the people who spoke like this were comprehensively defeated by the end of the war. There is one more dialogue that Peloponnesian War mentions. Mytilenian debate, in which this was a non-tributary member of Delian League. Delian League is of Athens. So when Mytilene thought that Athens might make it a tributary pay, they wanted to rebel, and Athenians, sensing that it would rebel, went and crushed the rebellion. Many men, around 1,000, were simply put to death after imprisoning them. So, but this massacre had made some people feel guilty. So there was a debate in Athenian assembly on this massacre. The point was, when there is a revolt, should you kill all or only some? Should you kill all and put all men to death and enslave women and children, or only some? See, normally people discuss in terms of whether it is right or wrong. But in this debate, one proposes that it is right to kill because we have the power. We want to maintain an empire. And the only way to do is to crush the rebellion, to kill. So he says, no kindness, just kill. This was one argument put forward by Cleon. Herodotus says, don't kill all, only few. But what is interesting in Herodotus' argument is, we should kill only few, not because we should be kind. No kindness. But we should kill only few because only if you kill few, that next time people want to rebel, they may surrender without putting all their resources to win the revolt. If they think that all the people are going to be killed, whether the revolt is successful or a failure, then they have no incentive for them to abort the revolt. So killing few is in our self-interest. In self-interest, not kindness. So Cleon argues, in our self-interest, kill all. Herodotus argues, in our self-interest, kill few. And both say, no question of kindness. Again, the argument is that there is no higher principle of justice other than power and self-interest. If it is in your interest to kill all, fine. If it is in your interest to kill few, fine. So there should be an argument in terms of what is self-interest of Athens. No morality. So, another element of realism is self-interest. Power and self-interest. No kindness. No higher so there are no abstract principles of justice. Power is justice, and power should be used to pursue self-interest. And that can self-interest, maybe expansion of empire or preservation of that empire. So, power as justice is quite an unusual position, which Athenians argued and Thucydides so clearly expressed in his book. But how can you evaluate Thucydides' position? If you ask me, a civil servant or any person, I think even if he doesn't take power as justice, I think he should take at least as a fact. In relationship, or as a fact. So when a bureaucrat is handling different kinds of people, I think it makes sense for him to take power into account. If he is powerful and an evil, by evil we mean definitely from different principles of justice. then a bureaucrat should try to reduce the impact of the evil. If he can eliminate, he should eliminate. But he can't say, I don't give importance to power at all. I'll only go by what is my notion of justice. I think that gives maturity to his actions. The world is complex. The world doesn't go by some abstract notions of justice. So a civil servant should pay attention to